Most people wouldn't reach for the Lumix S9 when doing serious portrait work, especially when you've got Sony fans yelling about the A7 IV or even the FX3. And whilst that's not really a photography-focused camera, you'll see why I mention it soon. But here's the thing, I've used those cameras, and this little S9 definitely punches above its weight class. Today I'm putting the S9 to the test to see if it can be taken seriously as a proper portrait photography and portrait videography, you see why I mentioned the FX3, camera. And spoiler alert, it can. Let's be real here. When people think of portrait photography, people will often think of a larger camera, something with an EVF, something with a nice viewfinder, and something with a bigger grip, and probably something with a Sony logo slapped on the front. But that doesn't mean people should discount this camera. This is the Lumix S9, a 24 megapixel full frame camera that is packed into a very tiny body. And let me tell you, this thing, I love this camera. Being upfront about it, I have made a bunch of videos about the S9 already, and it's no secret that I really do love this camera. I've said that multiple times across multiple videos. So I wanted to challenge the thought that you need a bigger camera with a Sony logo and all the bells and whistles I mentioned before. Because what if something smaller and lighter could deliver just as well? So I'm here at Songwhat Road with my beautiful wife, Yasmin. Haha, oh. And the setup is pretty simple. I'm using the S9 and then the 85 f1.8 from 7 Artisans, as well as the Lumix 18mm f1.8. That's it. I'm going to be doing some video as well, so for that I have got my DJI RS3 Mini, but this setup here you could very easily fit into an over-the-shoulder sling bag. Obviously, to film this YouTube video, I've had to bring my Peak Design bag, to bring my S5 Mark II, as well as my tripod, and this is a nice, small, compact setup, and we're going to be getting a lot out of it. I'm looking to create something a little bit moody and gritty to contrast with the clean look you get out of the Lumix S9. And the reason I brought the 18mm is because I wanted to play to the strengths of a wide angle lens, having certain parts of what's in frame be really wide and like stretched out while still keeping the main part of the subject, my beautiful wife Yaz, perfectly in focus and like shaped correctly. Kind of like these images here I did for last week's video, which you can check out at the end of this video. I'm going to be kind of doing that effect a bit with the wide angle lens again. And so, with that, let's get shooting. Something I love about the S9 is how easy this camera is to work with. I can move around freely and get low angles without drawing attention to myself, and the camera is so light that I don't feel it in my wrists at all, even after an hour or two of shooting. The lightweight of this camera of course makes it really easy to use with gimbals, and it means that I can use it with smaller gimbals like my DJI RS3 Mini. The small size really helps with any potential clearance issues. I can use a handful of lenses that I own, like these S-series prime lenses from Lumix. Even with a small rig cage on the S9, the camera only weighs 600 grams, and without the cage it only weighs 486 grams. Something I've been chasing a lot more as a photographer is chasing light, always focusing on where the sunlight is peering through in the scene and making use of shaping it around my subject from that point. Sometimes this means that it's not always in the specific point of the scene that I'd want it to be, like there's some parts of the street that look cooler, but if there's no light there, it will just end up looking flat. So as you can see in these photos here, whilst I really liked the background because we had these really cool posters behind Yaz, there wasn't really any interesting light. So whilst I do like the images, they're not as interesting as these ones I took over here, which were actually just across the street from the first spot, and it is just where a street sign is. There's nothing like crazy interesting, but the light is a lot nicer here, so the images I feel look a lot better. I think the S9 does a great job considering it has the S5 Mark II's sensor in here. It's got great dynamic range, great color rendition, and the highlights and shadows roll off really nicely here. The image is really nice and clean, and making use of the 7 Artisans 85mm here a lot, I was really happy with how the bokeh and everything just looked. And now here, of course, is where the video side of things comes in. The S9, like I said, has the same sensor as the S5 Mark II, so it can do 4K up to 60 frames per second. Now, I just stuck to 4K at 25 frames per second here because I didn't want to have to deal with a crop when I'm already at 85 mils. You could see that as a con. I do see it as like a con and also a tool. If I want to get a bit of extra reach from my lenses, then I know I can go to 4K 50 or 60 and get that. But of course, being in a tight space like this alleyway was here, and already being on an 85mm, I just didn't want to have to get even more of a crop. But it is really cool that we have the options to even go up to 180 frames per second in 1080p, because you can mix really shallow depth of field with these nice S prime lenses and these 7 Artisans 85mm with super slow motion and get something similar to what you could do on an FX3. Nice lenses, slow motion, creates a really nice looking shot. Obviously, framing and composition come into play here as well, just like lighting does, but you know what I mean. Plus, not to mention that the S9 costs less than half the price of an FX3. Just saying.
Bad dreams, bad dreams, bad dreams. You're no good for me. When I sleep, I dream bad dreams, bad dreams. You're no good for me. When I sleep, I dream bad dreams, bad dreams. You're no good for me. When I sleep, I dream bad dreams, bad dreams. You're no good for me. When I sleep, I dream bad dreams, bad dreams. You're no good for me. When I sleep, I dream bad dreams, bad dreams. You're no good for me. When I sleep, I dream bad dreams, bad dreams. You're no good for me. When I sleep, I dream bad dreams, bad dreams.
Alright, we're back home now and I'm editing the photos. Now, I've been jumping between Luminar Neo and Affinity Photo 2. I'm kind of testing out some new software. Affinity Photo 2 is like a good Photoshop replacement, but Luminar Neo is kind of a mixture of Lightroom and Photoshop. So on a trial with it right now, and I'm editing the images and they are turning out great. But one area that I could really use some help with is skin retouching. And thankfully, this is where today's sponsor of the video comes in, Retouch For Me. They have a really great piece of software that makes it so easy to batch process a bunch of photos and make the skin of your subject look perfect whilst still being realistic. As someone who's been creating things for a while, obviously I have dabbled with, skin smoothing and, plugins for Photoshop or whatever from the past, but I never liked how, unrealistic they made the person look. And you can fine tune these things, but often it takes a lot of time and it's just, if you've got like 100 images to do, let's say you're shooting a wedding, for example, that's like my number one go-to example for most things because, well, you shoot a lot of content, be it for photo or for video. And that's the other thing. Retouch For Me also has plugins for videos. You can smoothen out skin in a really realistic way, as well as other aspects of the photo. So depending on what your client is asking for, you can do a lot with this. With Apex, it's as simple as opening up the program, hitting browse, and finding the images that you want to utilize. So I've got a few of the photos that we shot with Yaz earlier in the video, and I'm just gonna select this landscape one here. Give it a second to load, and it will prompt you to start retouching. Now, Apex is a free program, and it utilizes credits that you can buy at the Retouch For Me website to then use the software, and it's pretty smart. You use 1 credit per photo. Now, to start retouching, I'll upload the photo to their server so it can analyze it and then allow me to begin editing it. Great, so here we've got a bunch of options from lifting to heal, dodge and burn, portrait volumes, eye vessels, eye brilliance, skin tone, mattifier, white teeth, fabric, and then clean backdrop. Now, taking a look at the photo we have here of Yaz, there's a few things I'm gonna change. First of all, I'm gonna turn off lifting. I don't really wanna change the facial structure of my models ever. It's not something I personally want to do, but if you have a client who wants you to make the model slimmer, it is as easy as sliding a slider and boom, they have a slimmer face. But I'm going to leave their facial structure alone. The heal tool is a pretty useful one because skin blemishes are common for everybody. I still get spots even though I am going to be 30 this year. And just taking care of that with a single slider in a realistic way is very, very cool. You can see here that the skin doesn't look too smooth or anything like that. But I mean, Yasmin is beautiful and doesn't have any blemishes anyway, but it's cool that you can, it's taken away her freckles and like some slight facial scarring, is that? I'm not sure, but in a very natural way. There's still detail to her skin, there's still texture to her skin as well, so it doesn't look like you've just taken like a brush and just put a big coat of paint over it and call that like healing. Now the dodge and burn tool is really cool because straight away you don't really see anything major happening. We turn it off here, you can see all it has actually done is taken some parts of the image, like for example here on Yasmin's wrist, that are like a little bit dark, and it's just bringing them up a bit to match the rest of her skin in that area of the image. Same with her face, and that's pretty cool because it's not, again, it's not over the top, it looks realistic. So I'm just gonna leave that turned on all the way. Let's see what portrait volumes does. Now this again seems to be another contrast type tool, but only for certain parts of the image. And I'm gonna turn this off and on again, off, on. It just seems to be enhancing certain areas in a cool way. I have no other way to describe it. I'm gonna leave it on, maxed out, because it looks really good. Now, eye vessels and eye brilliance, they work really well, but they won't work for this image because Yasmin's eyes are closed. I'm gonna skip over that. Skin tone, I do tend to leave off. I mean, for this image here, with it completely turned all the way down, doing nothing. Turning it up, you can see there's a bit of purple happening here. I think it's meant for correcting skin tone, like color imbalances, but here I would say there aren't any, so I'm going to leave that alone. Mattifier is a pretty useful tool. Any parts of the subject's face or skin that are like shiny from sweat, oil, whatever it is, it's very hot here in Bangkok, so this is a pretty useful tool. Yasmin's makeup is flawless, so she's never really shiny at all. I mean, obviously there's some shine here, but that's direct sunlight, so that's kind of a given. White teeth does what it says on the tin, but her teeth are not showing, so on this I can turn that off. Fabric's a pretty useful one. Fabric will just subtly smoothen out any fabric to a certain degree. Now, it's not like a, you know, there are natural ripples here, and it's not gonna remove that because that wouldn't look right. But you can see here and here, if I turn it back on, oh, sorry, not here, but over here, it just smoothens out certain parts that can be smoothed out while still looking realistic. And then clean backdrop. I have not actually played around with this one, but okay, that's kind of cool. So it cleans up the background a little bit just by making things look smoother, I suppose. Like you can see there's some, let's call it dirt from this part of the wall. Turn this on and it just smoothens it out. I could go either way, leaving it on or off. I think it works really, really well. And this is just some nice final touches for this image that I would then be really happy to just hit done for. Now, what's really cool is if you hit start, it will actually apply these settings to all of your images. Now, obviously, if you don't want to apply these settings to all of your images, you can always take some out of your list, remove them, and then create a new list simply by clearing this list, re-importing the photos that you want to edit, and then go from there. But I can see this being so useful for portrait sessions, weddings, events, where you have a general look you want to go for, cleaning up certain features, any acne or blemishes that might be there, and then just overall fixing them. That is such a useful tool, and to show you how quick it is, I know it's only for 3 images, but I've done this with about 30 images before too, and whilst it does depend on your internet speed, and here the internet is pretty decent, I'm just gonna let this run. You will spend 3 credits for 3 images, start batch cloud processing, and it will begin processing. Now you can go and have some dinner, make a coffee, edit the rest of your YouTube video. That's typically what I would do because it's all happening in the cloud. This isn't pulling any resources from your laptop, which I personally appreciate because, for example, when I'm exporting a YouTube video, I can't really use my laptop like to edit the thumbnail, for example. I could, it's just that it'd be very slow. It's kind of annoying. So I tend to like, once I hit export on a video, I leave my laptop alone. But because this is happening in the cloud, I can then continue editing a video or watching YouTube or, I don't know, writing my next script. Whatever you need to do, you can let this do its thing and get on with more work so that you are twice as productive. Now, Apex is a free program, but the credits do come with a monthly subscription. However, you can get a free trial and get 20 credits completely for free, no strings attached, and you can then try out this software to see if it's for you. And if you are happy with this software, they have 3 categories of subscriptions. There's Start, for $20 a month, where you will get 200 retouches. This works out to about 10 cents per credit. There's Pro, $35 per month, where this is about 7 cents per credit. And then Business, where this is about $90 a month, you will get 1,500 credits. This works out to about 6 cents per edit. Now, obviously, this depends on the scale that your business is at, but I can see this as something that pays itself back very, very quickly. And in all honesty, if I was a full-time wedding photographer, I would snap this up real quick because this is such a useful tool for fixing blemishes, cleaning up backgrounds, just making people look as best as they can whilst keeping it it realistic, and that was the important thing for me here when discussing this with Retouch for me, was I wanted to make sure their software was actually something I would personally use for myself or for my business. And this is something I can see being very useful for a lot of people. Now, another great thing about what Retouch for me is offering is that it isn't just a subscription, where for example, you can pay $20 to get 100 retouches. And this means that you can just pay once and you have those credits to use forever. Also, you can get your first 20 retouches completely for free. Now, the other great thing is there are Photoshop plugins as well, and you can make the choice between having your retouches done in the cloud, so you don't have to have a powerful PC like I said before, or you can have it be local to your device and just pay one time for the plugin and never have to pay for a subscription ever again. This presents an interesting mixture of how you can pay for the things you use. You can buy the things that you use frequently, like for example, the video retouching heal OFX effect, as well as the dodge and burn OFX effect. I would probably buy that myself because that's something that I would use for every single portrait style shoot. But then the cloud retouching stuff, whenever I do photography, I feel like it would make sense for me to just buy a credit pack when I need it rather than paying monthly for a subscription, because I don't do photo shoots consistently every single month, but I do a good handful of photo shoots here and there, maybe once every 1 to 2 months, depending on what I'm doing that month. So you can purchase things and pay for subscriptions for things depending on your needs. And also, like I mentioned before, they have video plugins as well for healing and dodge and burn, so you can create similar looks from the photos for your video content as well, which is so freaking cool. I'm really glad they have video assets as well, because as a hybrid photo video content creator, I shoot a lot of both. I mean, honestly, I lean towards video a lot more than photography just because of personal preference, but I'm happy that they have both. And those are a one-time purchase. And you can try it for free because they have demos of all of their plugins. So I can see this being really suitable for a lot of people. And if you are interested, there is a link in the description below where you can check it out for yourself. And thanks again to Retouch for me for sponsoring this video. Now, I'm not saying the S9 is the most powerful camera out there. It's not the biggest beast when it comes to photography or videography, but it has loads packed into it in such a small form factor at this kind of price point. It packs a massive punch, and I think actually hits pretty hard compared to some of the other cameras that are out